Okay, let's just dive right into this. Imagine two guys, same salary, same savings, same city. One goes out and buys a rental property, and the other does, well, absolutely nothing exciting with his money. Fast forward 20 years later, they are both worth roughly the exact same amount, and one of them is absolutely furious about it. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're stepping right into the middle of the ultimate internet debate, real estate versus index funds. We are going to cut right through the smugness, ignore all that dinner party bragging, and we are going to run the true 20-year numbers.
So let's set the stage and meet our two competitors. Right over here on my left, we've got Tyler, and over on my right, we have Devin. Now we're making this a real comparison, not some internet fairy tale. Both of these guys are 30 years old, both are bringing in $55,000 a year, and absolutely crucially here, both are starting with exactly $50,000 in savings. So they have the exact same starting line, the only difference is what they actually decide to do with that 50 grand.
Let's start over here on the left with Tyler. Tyler takes his $50,000 and throws it down as a 20% down payment on a $250,000 rental property. Nothing super flashy, just a solid, standard 3-bedroom house. He takes out a 30-year mortgage at 7% interest, so his monthly payment comes out to about $1,330. And he actually finds a tenant willing to pay $1,800 a month in rent. Look at that bottom number. On paper, that's $470 a month in pure profit before he spent a single dollar on anything else. So on day one, Tyler has a house, he's got a tenant, and he has a fantastic story to tell his friends. Honestly, he feels like a total financial genius. Okay, but what about Devin over here on the right? Well, Devin takes his exact same $50,000 and just drops it into a total stock market index fund. He sets up an automatic contribution of $300 a month and yep, that's it. The whole shebang. He doesn't even think about it again. There's literally no leverage here. There are no shiny keys to hand over. When his coworkers ask what he's investing in, he says index funds and they immediately change the subject because it's so boring. It's completely invisible, nobody is impressed. But as we're about to see, feelings and math are two very, very different things. Now, check out this massive number right here. Let's fast forward through the first 3 years. Tyler is living the absolute landlord dream. He's collecting rent checks, he's shaving money off his tax bill with depreciation, and he is feeling great about life. Over those 3 years, he collects roughly $64,800 in rent. Minus his mortgage payments, he is left with $16,920 in gross cash flow. I mean, wow, that number looks absolutely fantastic on a napkin, doesn't it? Oof, okay, just thinking about this next part makes me wince. Watch how fast that beautiful napkin math just completely drops. Because after you subtract reality, Tyler's actual net cash flow over those 3 years is somewhere around $2,000 to $4,000 total. Wait, why? Well, because property taxes ran him about $3,000 a year. Insurance added another $1,500. He had to replace a water heater out of nowhere for $1,200, fix a leaking roof for $2,800, and then he had to deal with 1 month of vacancy that cost him $1,800 in lost rent, plus another $600 just to clean and relist the place. And that brilliantly illustrates exactly what eats that cash flow alive. The hidden costs of running a physical property can be totally overwhelming. You've got vacancy, you've got routine maintenance, which generally runs about 1% to 2% of the property's value every single year. But the real kickers are the capital expenditures, or CapEx. Replacing a 20-year roof or a 15-year furnace, those are not strokes of bad luck. They are guaranteed eventualities. If you aren't setting aside money for these every single month, you aren't running a business, you're just running on luck. Add in property management or the lovely unpaid part-time job of managing it yourself and the looming threat of a bad tenant, and suddenly that $470 monthly profit gets very, very thin. So let's check back in with our guy Devin on the right at year 3. Devin put in his original $50,000 plus his boring little $300 monthly contributions. At roughly a 10% average annual return, his invisible, boring portfolio is sitting right here at about $76,000. And you want to know the absolute best part? He spent exactly 0 hours managing it. 0 phone calls from angry tenants at 10 p.m., 0 plumbing emergencies during his lunch break. But hold on, don't count Tyler out just yet, because Tyler has a massive weapon in his corner.
Leverage. See, Tyler used his $50,000 to control a $250,000 asset. Devin used $50,000 to control, well, $50,000. Because Tyler's property appreciated maybe 3 to 4% a year, his house is now worth around $270,000 to $280,000. Meaning his equity, the chunk of the house he actually owns, has grown to between $55,000 and $65,000. That is real, tangible wealth, generated by using the bank's money. This 5-to-1 leverage is the one massive advantage that stock investors just cannot easily replicate.
So, let's look at the timeline and zip down to year 10 to see how this builds. We go through year 5, which is basically the grind phase, where Tyler has replaced his third tenant, bought an $8,500 roof, and his actual cash-on-cash return is hovering around maybe 3 to 5%. Definitely not the 20% he bragged about at that barbecue. Meanwhile, Devin's wealth is starting to hit the accelerating curve of compound interest. You know, compounding is incredibly boring for the first 5 years and absolutely astonishing for the next 15. The gains on Devin's gains are now starting to generate more new wealth than his original contributions did.
Now look at this convergence at year 10. I am genuinely surprised every single time I look at this math. Tyler's equity is sitting between $170,000 and $184,000. Devin's portfolio is sitting at $165,000 to $180,000. They are surprisingly close in total wealth. Tyler is maybe slightly ahead thanks to that leverage we talked about, but he has spent hundreds of hours working for it, took on hundreds of thousands in debt, and tied everything to a single zip code. Devin diversified across thousands of companies and literally never lost a single night of sleep.
And here is the grand twist we've been waiting for. Year 20. After 2 full decades, Tyler's equity is between $400,000 and $500,000. Devin's portfolio is between $420,000 and $460,000. Yep, they are in the exact same ballpark. 20 years of warring internet philosophies, 20 years of debates, and their net worth is virtually identical. No way, right? So the absolutely crucial point here is how they actually arrived at that wealth. Tyler worked for his wealth. He had massive hustle, intense risk concentration in a single physical asset, and his money is highly illiquid, meaning it's literally trapped in bricks. Devin, on the other hand, waited for his wealth. Sure, he had to stomach some crazy market volatility, but he had total liquidity and ultimate freedom. It's the exact same destination, but entirely different journeys to get there.
But here is where the math changes dramatically in Devin's favor. Because of the multiplied effect of compounding, if Devin simply bumped his contribution by just $200, bringing it to $500 a month, his 20-year portfolio leaps forward to between $550,000 and $600,000. In the stock market, increasing your contribution multiplies effortlessly. For Tyler to increase his real estate investment like that, he usually has to buy an entirely new property, take on another massive 30-year mortgage, and literally double his workload.
Okay, it's time to drop the smugness about index funds for a second. Let's talk about the brutal reality of stocks. Picture a gut-wrenching roller coaster drop. In 2008, the market dropped roughly 37%. In March 2020, it plunged 34% in a single month. Imagine if Devin had $150,000 and had to watch it plummet to $95,000 in a matter of weeks. That is absolutely terrifying. And honestly, most retail investors panic sell during these drops, locking in their losses at the absolute worst possible time. And the downsides really don't stop at just the emotional toll. An index fund doesn't send you a monthly rent check that you can actually go out and spend. The dividend yields are tiny, usually around 1.5 to 2%. There's zero leverage. You only control the money you actually put in. And you get absolutely no tax depreciation. You just can't legally shelter your income by writing off the theoretical decline of an index fund the way you can with a physical building. And you know what? This is exactly when real estate actually crushes the stock market. If you buy in a market where the rent-to-price ratio is above 0.8%, the math just works from day one. If you use clever strategies like house hacking, where you live in one unit and rent out the others to drop your own living costs to zero, stocks literally cannot do that for you. If you use 1031 exchanges to roll profits into new properties entirely tax-deferred, and most importantly, if you treat it as a true business with real systems rather than just some messy side hustle, real estate is an absolute powerhouse. I think this quote right here sums it up perfectly. Real estate isn't a bad investment, it's a misunderstood one. Both Tyler and Devin thought they were making the ultimate smart play. Tyler thought real estate was the only proven path, Devin thought the market would do all the heavy lifting. The truth is, both paths build incredible wealth, but they demand very, very different sacrifices from you. So the real trap isn't stocks, and it isn't real estate. The real trap is making a 20-year life decision based on a YouTube headline or a Thanksgiving dinner debate without actually running your own numbers. So the next time someone tells you that real estate always wins or the stock market always wins, I want you to ask them one very serious question. Did you include everything? Because as we've seen today, the answer that includes everything is the only answer that matters. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I will see you in the next one.